you tell me a little bit about the story behind it? How long, when did you know it was a problem? How's the process working so far? Do you mind sharing a little bit about
Yeah,
that?
I'll share about that. So I think I've always known because I'm not one of those drinkers. So here's the biggest misconception is that like you think you know what an alcoholic looks like, right? And you're thinking of like the person who's destitute, like homeless on the street with his bottle, like getting in trouble, going to jail, whatever. I mean, that's not the case. There's professors, there's judges, there's business people, there's moms, there's everybody that are alcoholics. I wasn't one of those ones that drank every day or all day. I was one of those ones that had one drink and then had 12. And I was a binge drinker, and it affected me mentally and emotionally, financially for sure. And then hangovers, right? You get old, you have 2 day hangovers, and you're just a piece of shit, and you can't get your mind right, and your relationships suffer, and you're so freaking selfish. And so I didn't know it was a problem. Like, well, I didn't admit that I was an alcoholic until January of this year. And I had seen a post. I think, did Jasmina share about this? So I can share about this? All right. So I saw a post of one of my dear friends and sober sister, Jasmina, saying that she had been sober for 115 days. And this is another power of social media, right? Because without that post, I would have had no idea. I would have no idea. And so I asked her about it, and I said like, hey, that's great. Like, when did you make the decision? Because I think in the back of my head, I knew like, I need to cut this shit out. I really do. Like, it needs to stop. And so she poured her heart out to me and got me to my first AA meeting, and then I've continued, and I'm so much happier. Like, it's so much better. And there are days, what they don't, I mean, you can self-medicate with anything. And so early sobriety is tough for people, whether it's off a substance or off alcohol or whatever it is, because all those mental health things that you were numbing, all that stress that you were trying to, reduce by drinking or drugging or whatever, all that comes up, right? Because now you're not suppressing it in any manner. And so there's some pretty deep valleys and some pretty high peaks in it. And then you just kind of like work on balancing out. But overall, like, business is better. My relationship is better. My relationship with my family is better. My ability to process like frustrating things, bad things, like my head is screwed on right. Like that's the difference. And I'm able to like intelligently process things. So for me, I hope I never go back to drinking because I just can't handle it. Like, I just can't handle it.
Thank you so much for sharing. With Jasuna shared that, I was like, oh my God, thank you so much for doing that. That's something that puts yourself in a vulnerable place, but you're willing to do it to help out someone else. So that speaks volume of you. So I just want to thank you again. One follow-up question that I did have from that set is like, how can someone, just like you, and you kind of did answer this, like, again, I don't drink and drive. I don't drink every day, but maybe it's a weekend thing. What are some of the signs that, you do have a problem? Even though Jasuna said, when you do have a
You
problem.
totally know,
but
yeah.
then at the same time, I think there's people that may drink once a month and maybe they have a bad discussion. I don't know. Tell me, what are some of the signs that maybe someone can take from this and maybe see if that applies on them?
Totally. So a couple of things that I would recommend. The first is like, if you're regulating your drinking in any manner, like if you're saying, and in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous it talks about regulate, if you say, oh, I'm switching from hard liquor to beer, I'm only going to drink on weekends, or I'm only going to have 2, or, I'm only going to drink between these hours, or I'm only going to, like, when you start regulating your intake, the reason that you're regulating is probably maybe because you have a problem. Not, that's not a hard and fast rule. But if you're thinking like, holy shit, I went a little too hard, like I need to regulate myself, probably got a problem. If you think, or if you're just curious, like AA is not this scary thing full of like guys who have been to prison. Like, it's not. We have an awesome community, and go with somebody. Message me if you want to go. Like, I'll go with you. But you'll start, and you don't ever have to say anything, but people share their stories. And of course, it's anonymous, so you can't talk about what you heard or who is there, but they'll share their stories about alcohol. And for me, I hear things that I did or ways that I thought or how I acted from somebody else. And I'm like, well, oh, they're definitely an alcoholic. They're acting like that. I acted like that. Okay, guys. Like, yeah. Yeah. So going and learning. And if you're not, you're not, but you don't lose anything. And you might, like some of my dearest friends right now are from AA. I mean, they're just so supportive, and the stories are amazing in all walks of life. So like that is a gift. That is the biggest gift of 2021 for me so far.
And that's such a great example, because as far as like identifying, because if you are catching yourself that every single time you go out, you putting yourself a limit, there's a reason why you're doing that, right?
Yep.
And then you, again, and that can vary from person to person. And guess what? That's kind of like, I don't know anything about this. Or do I, right? But
well,
or do I, right? But that's such a great way to call it out first, that self-awareness, and then from there, take a different step.
Yeah, just go or watch some videos or whatever. I mean, I researched for years benefits of stopping drinking, right? And then I thought I could like intellectually do it, right? Like, so I would go on these, I would say I'm not going to drink for 30 days. And then I wouldn't. And then on day 30, I'm like planning how to get shit-faced. Like, who's going to drive me home and where I'm going to go and how many bottles of wine am I going to take? Because I had a problem. Like, it wasn't about changing a lifestyle. It wasn't about admitting that I'm an alcoholic. How do we, fix that or treat that? Or it was just like, I can power through this and, check the box.
Okay.
And yeah, and that never stuck. And again, I can't say this is going to stick. I hope it does. But like, it's a total mindset shift, and they call it hearing God speak through others. But if you're not a religious person, it is what it is. But you hear those stories and you develop a fellowship with other people, because only other alcoholics can understand alcoholics.
Nice. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure it's going to help someone.
I hope so.